Hey, you guys, and welcome to American Culture. I had to put on a shirt because God said, no showing your boobs on camera. And you know what, Jesus, I hear you. With that being said, I've been in this long discussion with myself and my mother today about why people are okay with living in sin. And I'm not talking about watching porn, smoking, doing all that stuff. I mean, why they're okay with like living these disconnected lives. Like my major issue is I have family, right? I have them, but I don't know these people. And I think that especially like my siblings or, like my pastor uncle or something, considering that I'm this dude, the whole Jesus thing, you would think that I would be able to build and have a life with these people, but I can't because we're living in disconnection. And so God started talking to me about how that's what people are taught. Like when they go to church, you're taught that you're a sinner, and what they don't recognize is that the foundation of that is being disconnected, so they end up living these very disconnected lives. And that's just not the way that it was supposed to be. Like your lineage a lot of the times has a lot to do with the legacy that you leave behind, and the legacy is you being able to pour your Christ-like consciousness into circumstances of disconnect, i.e. sin, suffering, whatever, and bring healing to that. God equips you with compassion in order to be able to do that, and we'll get back to that in a second. But the main issue is that most people, all of us, were born into sin, and the only person who wasn't was Jesus Christ. He was actually born into grace. He was never separated from the Father. And that's when it started to click to me. God let me know that when you are in the fullness of your Christ consciousness, know who you are in Christ Jesus, accept who you are, as a child of God, and basically, you embody truth and compassion and trust and patience, all those different fruits. You can then use them to nourish the circumstances that you're in. But you do have to be born again in your Christ consciousness to do that. And when you do, life should go from grace to grace. And that's what's been happening to me. Like God just blesses all day, every single day. And I'm so happy to receive him every opportunity that I get. And because I see life that way, it's really put it like why can't I not get along with my family? Especially like my pastor uncle. Like, don't you get this stuff? You shouldn't have this kind of animosity with your niece for really no reason whatsoever. At what point in time is that going to start making sense to people that we were here to build with each other? And recognize that even, as a niece, as a sister, as a cousin, as a friend, I am a gift from God to you. God has graced you with me and vice versa, and act like that. And they don't. And God let me know, he said most people, like they say, they read the Bible, do all that other stuff, but they don't ever like walk into the fullness of what Christ is. So they don't recognize that you are supposed to be going from grace to grace. And although you're going to encounter sin and you're going to encounter suffering, none of that stuff is there for you to fix because it ain't broken. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing, but you are supposed to heal it. That's why he makes you compassionate. Do you remember the other day I was telling you about how, it's not about being sympathetic or empathetic, because that just allows you to relate to people, but you got to be compassionate, which means that, I see this, I relate to you, I can get down and be like Jesus and weep with you. I also know that there's a better way and there's a new life that's coming, and I'm not going to sit here in the suffering. I actually have the tools to bring healing to this circumstance. So as a Christian, anytime that you see a disconnect from the full grace of God here, i.e. you're gossiping, you don't like that person, or this is boring, or that I don't like that. Anytime that you encounter that, God has equipped you with all of the nourishment you need in order to pour into that situation and to really heal that dynamic so that it can be filled with life and it can be filled with community and communion and all that other stuff. But most people, while they read the Bible, they don't actually like accept that they have a part in it. And that's what he was letting me know, because I look at myself as a legacy builder. It's important for me to do the work that God has placed in me to be able to do. And he was letting me know, no, you need a lineage for that. And you also need to accept, that you have genuine work to do when you encounter these circumstances of separation. You're not just supposed to live there in them. And it's just mind-boggling to me how, as a Christian, you could accept living in suffering. you have all the tools to not have to do that. It says, everybody's going to encounter it. Da, 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 da. What chapter is that in, you guys? I don't know. Where it talks about, I think it's First Peter chapter 5, the whole thing. Everybody's going to be, suffering and stuff like that. But after a little while, recognize that you have been, graced by God to do wonderful things there. He's going to give you the strength. He's going to rebuild you. But you have to embody that Christ-like energy in you in order to be able to receive God, because he is here to grace you. Like literally, you have God dwelling within you. And so the grace is there as well. But because we're so focused on being a sinner, we live in the disconnection as opposed to the grace. And without it, you don't recognize who you actually are and what you're here to do. And so when you encounter these situations of suffering and, disconnection, you just join them there as opposed to doing what you're supposed to be doing to pour out compassion. You stay sympathetic and empathetic, and you don't pour out the compassion. You don't do the things. You don't give the patience. You don't give the kindness. You don't give the truth. And so the situation stays unhealed, even though you're the one that's in it to heal it. That's why it says, with Esther, and she faced, adversity, all those people. And they recognized that they were here for a time like this because they were fully graced by God's presence and had the capacity to bring change to their circumstance. So as a Christian, if you're out there and you don't get along with this family member or whatever else and all that other stuff, obviously you still have to work. You're not in the fullness of Christ because there's unforgiveness there and a complete lack of you understanding your part in that and what God's trying to do, not just to you, but through you. So yeah, it's very interesting. We are all born into sin. We all are born into disconnection. There is this dying to self thing that needs to take place so that Christ consciousness can rise up and you can live in that fullness. But once that does take place, be mindful that although you will encounter suffering just like Jesus did, you will encounter separation, you should never live there. So if you've had years of not getting along with people, years of, I don't like the way that something is, yeah, you're not doing your part. Hello, you were given all the tools to be compassionate and pour in and make that situation better than what it is. It's up to you to recognize that you've been graced by God to do that. So I'm officially living grace to grace right now. I trust in God. Yeah, I do. I trust in God and what he's doing through me. I now know the importance in how to leave a legacy, which is when I walk in the disconnection, pour out, my compassion. It has nothing to do with stuff. Nothing to do with stuff. And I'm grateful for the lineage that God is attaching me to, and I'm thankful for it. You guys, I want to tell you so bad about the beauty that has walked into my life, but I'm going to give it a few weeks, and then I'll let you guys know that God really did a thing for me, really has catapulted my life. So with that being said, have a blessed day, friends.